Hi, my name is DM Barr. I write novels of sex, suspense, and satire. My latest release is called Saving Grace, a psychological thriller, and it is available on Amazon, Barnes and Noble, iBooks, wherever you buy your next great reads. The advance buzz and the current reviews have been wonderful. I'm so grateful. So thank you for those who have read it, and for those who haven't, why don't you pick up a copy? My guest today on Author Groupie is Matt Fitzpatrick. He's led a very interesting life, and he has been heavily involved in the Boston political scene, or he's had access to it, and he has had access to the underworld. And he brings all that authenticity to his novels. He has two on the market, and he's about to release a third next year. So sit back, relax. There's still time to get a vote in, so please go ahead and vote. And when you are out voting, put your mask on and wear it over your nose so it actually works. And as always, stay safe. Welcome to another edition of Author Groupie. I'm here with Matt Fitzpatrick. Now, he's a Boston College graduate, so like me, he went to school in Boston. He grew up in a politically active and connected Irish family, unlike me. He's enjoyed 25 years in the investment management industry, and he's earned a U.S. Coast Guard Sea Captain's license. That's pretty cool. He lives in Cape Cod with his wife and two daughters, and many of the characters in his novels are reflective of the colorful people in his life. And so his scenes are often anecdotal, which we'll ask him about. His latest thriller, Matriarch Game, was released in August. Thanks for joining me on Author Groupie. Welcome.
Well, it's a pleasure to be here. Thanks for having me.
Wonderful. So tell us a little bit about the new book. Can you give us a synopsis?
Yeah, the new book, really, it's funny. And we'll probably touch upon this. When I wrote my first book, I didn't realize how much of an autobiography it was. And I did not set out to write an autobiography. But I think with any author, your first book is going to have autobiographical tones because you have years and years and years of experience to draw on. You can't get away from it. With the second book, I said, all right, no more autobiographical aspects. I want this to be purely fiction, and I want to invent some new characters and have some fun. And I found myself right back into an autobiographical situation. Really, the second book, you mentioned my living on Cape Cod with my wife and kids. Unfortunately, that's not the case. I got divorced.
Oh, I'm sorry. That was in your bio.
Oh, really? Oh, geez.
That was your publicist sent me that information, so I apologize.
I gotta update that. That's old. But no, what I found was with the second book, while it is gritty crime, I'll never get away from that genre because I love it. I relish it. We could talk about that. Although I do infuse my work with a lot of twisted humor, so I keep it light. Really, I introduced a new character who's a strong young woman, and young, I mean young. And she's gone through incredible odds to survive and get where she is. And she ends up being incredibly talented and intelligent. And really the second book, as I create a whole new set of characters, a whole new storyline, a whole new setting. But it ended up, I read it and I said, geez, this is a note to my daughters. And I have two daughters in college, and it's really a note to them about becoming strong women, being formidable, taking on the world, overcoming challenges, obstacles. And it was really my way of saying to them a few words of encouragement in a world that is, especially now, full of all kinds of obstacles and challenges. And like I said, they're both in college and they're dealing with a college experience that I didn't have to endure. I find that, being a fiction writer, which I am, and I think I always will be, I can't get away from the autobiographical aspects because I've led a kind of an interesting life, and it hasn't been dull. and I draw upon those experiences, and I do kind of bear witness, and that's sort of inadvertent to the work. I didn't mean to set out to do that.
So if you had to, in your elevator pitch, if you're in front of an agent and you have to give 2 or 3 lines about what your book's about, what would you say this book's about?
It's about bad people doing bad things. And on a lighter note, it's about a coming of age story of a young girl who has to overcome incredible obstacles and gets involved with these bad people doing bad things, but learns to love and learns to thrive. And it's an examination of some real life experiences and what's going on right now, especially with some human ferrying. I don't want to say I got into human trafficking. I did not in this book, but human ferrying, which I researched and is definitely alive and well through the Bahamas, getting people into the country, and we examined that a little bit. But that's really what it's about. It's really a coming of age story for this young girl. And then I continue the story with my protagonist, Justin. And his name is Justin McGee, and I use McGee as a paying homage to John D. McDonald's protagonist, Travis McGee. And it's really a coming of age story for her and how she copes with the world and these rough people and learns to thrive and learns to love and learns to be loved.
I'm kind of curious, what is human burying?
Basically, there's a system of ferrying through the Bahamas that I did research. It's a lot of folks from Eastern Europe, Africa. They stop in the Bahamas to sort of get their documents in order, spurious or not. And there's an underground ferrying system to bring them into the States.
Ferrying. I heard burying.
No, not burying. No, not burying anybody. Well, a couple of people get buried. It's a crime novel, but
okay. I was like, what? All right. No, my hearing is not the best. Okay.
No, nor is mine. So we'll go make a great pair here. It's a ferrying system, and I make a very clear distinction though when I describe the book. It's not about human trafficking. There's a big difference.
Okay. Well, how has your unique upbringing in a hardcore Irish political Boston family affected your writing and your ability to tell stories and bear witness?
Ah, boy, let's see. Well, I grew up in a family. My grandfather landed on Normandy, shot twice, 2 Purple Hearts, part of the Greatest Generation, came home, I grew up in a city called Lowell, Massachusetts, small city in the northeastern part of the state, but a rough city, rough and tumble. I had a very nice upbringing. It wasn't certainly not complaining about that, but he came back and was mayor twice. He was a big man on campus, and he got very involved with the Kennedys early on, with the Irish connection. And so I was a kid. I was an only child for 10 years. So my sister came along. And I was always a wide-eyed kid. And there was so much going on around me with the politics and the activity and the sort of important people that would come and visit. And my grandfather was larger than life. And what I would do is bear witness. And a lot of my writing, I don't spend on the internet doing research. I don't spend time in the library. I don't think anyone does anymore. It's really just listening to people, watching things. And that started when I was 4 years old. And I just sucked it all in. I was a sponge. And all these people, they would speak very loud and they're all very important. And they showed such deference toward my grandfather that I couldn't help but notice that, wow, this guy is important, I guess. Treated me like a prince. And it was just a blast. It was an education that I never could have gotten in school or paid for, or Irish politics is a blast. It's a cultural phenomenon in Massachusetts.
So I'm sure that brings a great deal of realism to your books. I'm sure they sound more authentic because of your experience. What was the catalyst for writing your first novel, and how did one unique contact with the Boston underworld open the floodgates of ideas?
Yeah, that was a once in a lifetime opportunity. Through a friend of a friend, as you mentioned, I have my captain's license. I do a lot of boating. I love, I can't stand golf, so I got to, I enjoy being out in the water. And through a friend of a friend, I was introduced to two members, former members of the Angiulo family. The Angiulos ran Boston for, 30, 40 years. And they, of course, answered to the Petrarcas in Rhode Island, who answered to, I believe it was the Genoveses in New York. It was this whole system that is now defunct. But I was introduced to an enforcer and a collector for the Angiulo family. Both retired, if you will. They did their time. They all sort of pled out and ratted each other out. It's a whole. When the Angiulos fell, everyone started scurrying. But I had the most interesting 2-hour dinner I've ever hosted, and I sat down with first the collector talked, and the collector, if you owed the mob money, the collector would knock on your door and politely say, "Hey, geez, you're a little late. Can you, maybe next week, nice, good cop." And then if you didn't pay, then the enforcer came in and broke your arm. So it was, I get to have dinner with these guys, and the enforcer I'm still in contact with. And it was 2 hours of an education that you couldn't pay for. You couldn't take a course. It was once in a lifetime favor that someone did for me to make the connection. And the notes I took that night really were the basis for my first book, Crosshairs. I'm like, this is an opportunity that if I'm going to be a writer, nobody gets access to the inside of how things work than I just did for 2 hours. And that was the catalyst. That was the spark.
Sounds fascinating.
Yeah.
What is it about the crime space that intrigues everyday law-abiding citizens? And why hasn't it gone away since the Friends of Eddie Coyle or The Godfather?
I think it's pretty simple. I don't think the crime space is ever going to go away. The reason is it's intriguing for the average person because these guys have incredible freedom, perceived freedom. When you really learn about it, they don't live as much a life of freedom as you think. They have constraints like everybody else, especially with law enforcement. But there's no stop signs, there's no speed limits. They don't pay taxes. They do what they want, when they want, to whom they want to do it. And I think that sense of, latitude in life, I don't want to say freedom, but latitude is intriguing to people because we all have to, while we have a free society and we have the best country in the world, we still are under a lot of constraints. And these guys, it's perceived, at least through movies and novels, they don't follow those rules, and they enjoy a life that a lot of people would like. They would like the latitude that these guys enjoyed for a long time. It's a little different now, but back in the day.
So you've got these two books out. The most recent came out in August. What's coming up next for you?
Actually, it ended up being not on purpose. It's just how it kind of came together. The third book will be out next Labor Day. It's going to be part 3 in the trilogy. I call it the Justin McGee trilogy because he's my protagonist. And that book is actually, I did some research. That was a harder book to write. The third book, and again, it's not out yet. We're talking about Matriarch Game today, the second book, which just came out. But the third book is really examining the New England, Nova Scotia drug trade and the opiate epidemic that has, plagued New England and most of the country. I lost someone dear to me to opiates, and that kind of gave me the inspiration to examine this epidemic and how does it work? And where I was living at the time on the North Shore was literally 10 minutes where a lot of this was going on. So again, through friends of friends, I've been very lucky. I was very involved in the North Shore maritime community, and I got some great sit downs with some very interesting people who were doing some rough things. If you know about New England, especially like Northeast Massachusetts, we had a thriving fishing community, and they're the salt of the earth, and they kept the Northeast Mass economy going for years. Yet through government restriction and also their own technology, which has fished them out, there is a certain element, not the majority, and these people are law-abiding, salt of the earth citizens, but there is a minority that is involved in this drug trade, and it's primarily Nova Scotia. It's no secret, and any seaport in eastern Massachusetts is, with the exception of Boston, but places like New Bedford, Fall River, Gloucester, I mean, there is a trade that is alive and well. And back in the old days, you'd always have, people running marijuana, and that was one thing. But marijuana took up a lot of space. It smelled. Okay. Now you can take the same amount of an opiate type of drug and fit it in a lunchbox and have it be worth $200,000.
Wow.
So how do you not succumb to the temptation?
Sure. And when do you think that will be out? Next Labor Day?
Labor Day. Yeah,
Very good.
we're on
Very
track.
good.
Yeah, no, it's in final editing now. And I think it's again, I write about heavy topics, but I keep it light. I definitely infuse some really twisted humor in that I'll have friends call me or email me and they're like, should I have laughed at that part? I'm like, yes, that is supposed to be a joke.
Yeah.
And so I do infuse a lot of twisted humor. I keep my characters hopefully multidimensional. They're not just all bad guys shooting each other up. It's not like that at all. I try to give them a soul. I try to give them thoughts and emotions and regrets and dreams. So I try to keep them not black and white. I want them to live life in color, and I have a blast with it. I'm really, I walked away from a world that was very stringent, a professional world, and I entered this dream of becoming a novelist, and I'm never looking back.
Wonderful. Well, I do have a question, and that is because I'm very involved in the marketing aspect of writing. I noticed that both of your books are only available in hardcover, which is a harder play for a new audience and a new writer. So what was the thinking behind that?
A couple things there. First of all, there was a selfish reasons. I'm old school. I love the feel of a hardcover. I love the smell. I love the typeset, the print. I think it's classy. I think it's almost a lost art that I'm, I guess, maybe clinging on to. And I wanted, I worked so hard on my material and I'm so proud of it. I want to present it in a way that, I can point to it and hold it and feel it and say, I've changed my life to be able to do this and sacrificed a lot. And
so why not offer it both ways?
I think the ebook issue and a lot of the online stuff and audio, there's an economic piece to that, in that it's tough to make money. My hardcovers sell for $25 a pop, and people are like, who's going to pay that? Who's going to pay that? Well, they do. I'm very fortunate to have a very large friends and family network, and then that, of course, spider webs. So my sales have actually been brisk. I don't regret at all just embracing the electronic format. tough way to make a buck, and I don't enjoy the format personally. So why would I want to thrust that upon my readers?
Oh, well, everybody has to market their own way. I personally can't read hardcover anymore because of my eyes. So I need to make the print larger. And it's an easier way to be accessible. Because I figure for me, I'm a new author to most people. They're taking a risk. But then again, if you've got a large network, I don't. I have no friends.
Yeah, well, no, I think that as time goes on and the second book starts selling more, the third book will be out. I'm going to explore other formats. I mean, I'm not afraid of technology. I'm not, wishing it away. Although there were days where I wish we didn't have cell phones and wish Facebook would go under. I mean, there were days, but for the most part, I think the path I've chosen, it's maybe a little anachronistic to some people, but I believe I like to call it classic, and I'm not letting go just yet.
Fair enough. Well, I wish you best of luck in the new book.
Thank you.
Brisk sales to continue, and for the one that's going to come out next year, please, keep going. I'd love to read the book once it's in digital so I can read it.
Once it's in, well, that's
it's not financial, it's just physical. I have to make the print large. I'm old.
Well, no, I that's a point well taken, and one that I'll take under advisement.
Great. So thank you very much for joining me today, and I hope you'll stay safe.
Thank you so much. Stay safe and healthy, and thank you for having me.
Thank you.
Take care.